What's up guys, Phoenix here. This video is going to be another DN ranked match, and I'm going to be playing with the Mermail deck again. I'm going to be doing this format where I commentate the game after I've actually played it because I want to keep things smooth, and honestly this is just a better format for me to use moving forward. It takes a little bit more time to actually, film itself, but ultimately works a bit better for me in the long run. But anyway, I win the rock, paper, scissors game, and I choose for him to go first. And my hand is really good, considering what he could be playing, just simply because I have the Diva. As long as the Diva goes through, then everything is set and fine. And then I've got Raigeki and Forbidden Chalice to clear possible threats of, maybe if he's playing like Fiends, if he's playing the Monarch deck, but he has an extra deck. But there have been some Monarch variants that have been doing very well that have an extra deck and play an extra deck based strategy. But regardless, it doesn't turn out to be any of those options, and he's playing Dinomist. It starts out with a Dinomist charge to search for Petron, which is the Searcher, the Shura Searcher, when it kills things in battle. Then he just sets one and passes his turn. Apparently he had a very weak hand. I have no way of knowing the other cards in his hand, but as long as that back row isn't anything that stops this Diva from resolving, then it's pretty much in my favor, 100%. So I summon the Diva, and I just try to see if it goes through, see what happens. And it actually just ends up resolving, and I'm like broken. At this point, everything that I do from here is going to be free because of the fact that Neptibus is going to send Dragoons to get another search. So I've already established so many cards that I can actually just start cycling through, even without like instant fusion being a factor in my hand, because I can just immediately go for Megalo if something happens to, say, the Neptibus. But the Neptibus will have sent Dragoons as cost and thus resolve. But at this point, I'm trying to think of how I'm going to basically kill him. The Marksman is already in my hand, so there is that's kind of good, but I also have the Dragoons in my hand, so I can basically add either another Infantry or a Marksman, and in this instance I choose to add Infantry because I can pop his Dinomist charge. I have no idea what the back row is, but if it gets popped by Marksman as well, then I'm going to be swinging into his open board. Now, of course, he could possibly run something like Gores, but I honestly just didn't. I'm not going to factor that in. I don't expect that from a Dinomist deck. I don't expect someone to be running Gores when your entire deck strategy involves Pendulum Summoning and leaving cards face up on the field to literally do nothing. But regardless, the Dragoons searches a Megalo, and I ditch the Dragoons in my hand and the Marksman in my hand to summon said Megalo, and structure the chain links with Dragoons as 1, Marksman as 2, and Megalo as 3. Because I want to see what the card is before I get my Dragoon search. That's ultimately the reason. If it's not chainable, I still wanted to see what it was. And if it is chainable, then I wanted to see what it is afterwards and before anything like that happens. But it ends up being Dinomist Rush, and Rush ends up summoning a Rex from his deck, but he summons it in attack position, which honestly wasn't really relevant because I end up just shoving enough damage down his throat to be game either way if it was in defense or not. But I think he just kind of got lulled into this sense of he thought that the Megalo wasn't going to get any bigger. I guess, maybe. So he's like, I see this Megalo, and if I put this Rex in defense position, it's automatically getting run over. Ha 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 ha. But little was he aware that there was just an equip spell incoming. But anyway, so I get a second Megalo off the Dragoon search that triggered there, and I discard the Pike and the Heavy Infantry to summon the Megalo out of my hand, and I use the Infantry to pop his Dinomist charge, because if there's something that keeps me from killing him this turn, I definitely do not want that Rex going back to his hand. That is the last thing that I want, is for that to happen. If for some reason, for some unbeknownst reason that I don't kill him, I would love for that Rex to just be in the extra deck where it belongs, so that it can't be a possible scale. Things like that. But I use one of the Megalo's effects to get 2 attacks, tributing the Netibus off. And then the Neptibus triggers getting Dragoons. And I make a small misplay here where I summon the Dragoons back and then I immediately tribute the Dragoons for the second Megalo to get a second attack as well. Whereas I could have easily just tributed the Diva because there was no point in tributing the Dragoons because Mooling Glace wasn't live, there were too many Waters in Grave. There was just no reason to do that other than just, for damage. But at that point, just adding the extra damage the Dragoons would have over Diva just made more sense, instead of just getting a search for a Neptibus. Because there's 6 cards in my graveyard, and every single one of them is a water monster. I'm aware of this, so the Mooling Glace was definitely not live. But I equip the Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi onto one of the Megalos. Both of them are loaded up with 2 attacks. So this is 32 over the Dinomist Rex, which is unaffected by card effects, which is other card effects due to Dinomist Rush, which is why I did not just Raigeki it, because it's unaffected. But that's just 4,000 from that Megalo by itself, and then the other Megalo can hit for another 48. So it's definitely game. He's playing a machine deck. I don't think that his deck is very well equipped to make rank 4s, so I just immediately decide to take out the Chalices because I don't think Dweller is going to be that big of a factor. There might be a Cyber Dragon Infinity that could be incoming because the deck is, rank 5 machines basically. So I end up just swapping the Max C's out for the System Downs instead because I was hovering over the Forbidden Chalices because I was like, I don't have to deal with a Dweller or anything like that. But I would love to chain a Chalice to a Cyber Dragon Infinity. That would be great. But I want to put the 3rd Twin Twister in, and so I just swap out the Raigeki for it since I've just put in System Downs. I've got 2 more efficient board clearers than Raigeki is, and System Down, honestly, it just banishes the monsters instead, and he is playing a machine deck. Those cards are definitely meant for Cosmo, but they can definitely be used and applied in this matchup. But I finished siding, he's finished siding as well. He's deciding whether or not he wants to go first or second, and honestly I think the only option for him is to go first because, his deck needs to set up boards that I have problems with, essentially. But he takes his sweet time actually thinking about whether he wants to go first or second. Actually takes a calendar year basically to decide. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, come on. And then all of a sudden I hear the noise for cards being distributed, and I'm like, yes, it's time. But my hand is really good. 2 Neptibusses, a Teus, and then 2 Upstarts. So I have 3 draws next turn. So I definitely have a hand that can mold into something amazing. And I just do the thing that I do to always check to see if I'm going first or not is I hover over standby phase and see if the button lights up. That's just something that I do. People have different methods of seeing whether or not they're going first or second, ever since the 5-card draw rule was implemented. But he starts his turn off with a Draco face-off, which I honestly kind of was expecting, but kind of wasn't expecting there to be Draco Slayers in this deck, because some people will elect to not play them. But he's playing them, and rightfully so. So he starts trying to establish Luster as a 1, 2, 3, and I just immediately go heads Luster and flip the coin because that is a thing. That is a very very valid thing that a lot of people don't know about. Is that when a card says your opponent randomly picks, that your opponent has the right to establish what the parameters are. If I was going to flip a coin or roll a die or anything like that to choose randomly instead of just picking one, I get to choose. Even if we did roll a die, I would get to choose what's 1, 2, 3, what's 4, 5, 6, or whether it's 1, 3, 5, and 2, 4, 6, stuff like that. Your opponent gets to technically choose the parameters of what you're going to be doing for the randomization of the coin flip and the die. In terms of what the stuff is. But basically that's just a little technicality that not a lot of people know. But anyway, I picked the Luster at random or I picked the Vector at random. I just called heads Luster in the chat and then flipped the coin and it landed on tails. So Vector went to his scale and Luster went to his extra deck, and he pendulumed to 2 after setting up his scale and playing Dynamist Charge, and immediately went into a Dinoster and set 1 card and passed. And so I upstart and I wait for him to gain the 1,000. Either he's lagging or he's just not paying attention because he takes a little bit of time, either both times. But anyway, I end up drawing Megalo and Gen X Undyne off of the Upstart Goblins, and both are very good. The Undyne could have been any other water monster in the deck and it would have been just as fine. But honestly, I'm kind of okay with it as it stands. But I can summon Neptibus, and I can immediately just start chewing away at cards that he has, because Neptibus by itself is just 3 different cards. And the fact that I have a Neptibus in my hand is also really good, because if something happened to this one on the board, then I would be able to tribute the one out of my hand. I also have Instant Fusion. My play ceiling is really high. I drew Instant Fusion for turn, and then I drew drew Megalo and Undyne off the upstarts. It got really insane really quick in terms of what my hand's output was, basically. But so I summon the Neptibus, send Dragoons to add a Marksman, because I already have another Dragoons in my hand. I add Dragoons, and then add Marksman off the first Dragoons because I already had Megalo in my hand. That's the order. That's the order indeed. But anyway, Teus is the lowest risk investment and has the highest return and highest reward to, the highest yield, basically. Lowest risk, highest yield. So I discard the Marksman for it to summon it. And he has another Rush face down. It's no actual trap, but he does have Max C. And what do, ladies and gents? When they Max C, we give no fucks. We kill them. So that's the game plan. I drop the Teus in attack mode, search my gun. I target his Rush for Marksman, he chains it, and he has apparently learned his lesson from the first game, and he summons his Rex in defense position, and it is unaffected by all other card effects. Or at least it's either all other card effects or all my opponent or the opponent's card effects, so all my card effects. Either way, I don't know. I structured my play as if it was protected by Dinomist. So I don't know whether or not it actually was. I didn't want to read his card again because I read it game 1 and I didn't remember everything about what it does. I just remember that I can't do anything to it and touch it. So that's all that was really important. But I consider my options for a bit. I know I'm under Max C. I've got another Dragoons in my hand that I can use. I've got a bunch of different things that can just happen. So I ultimately decide that the best line of play is to set up as many Dragoons attacks, or not Dragoons attacks, Megalo attacks as possible. And I discard the Dragoons and the Undyne that I'm definitely not using out of my hand to summon this first Megalo. And use Megalo to get my equip spell, and I use Dragoons to get another Megalo after he draws his card. I mean, to be honest, sometimes I have to remind people to draw their cards with Max C when I'm playing this deck because of how courteous I am with how I activate the effects to summon themselves from hand, putting them in the spell and trap zone and then moving into the monster zone. A lot of people kind of wait for that noise cue of the monster hitting the board, that's their trigger to draw, whereas that noise cue doesn't happen when you go from spell trap card zone to monster card zone. So sometimes I do have to remind people to draw, and some of his draws come a bit later than they should, but they were all very valid and very much legal in what he was allowed to have. But anyway, so I search Megalo off that Dragoons, and I'm sitting here and I'm contemplating what I should do from this point forward, and I'm basically just at a point where I want to attack him as much as possible. I want to get his, I want to get everything gone. He's at 10,000, but I've got plenty of damage to attack through 10,000, so I pull up a calculator and I start doing some damage calculations, because in order for me to get over the Dinomist, I would definitely have to dedicate at least one attack with a Megalo that's at 32 into it. But if I'm a Dweller, that's 37, and they bump by a lot. So I'm literally just sitting here doing math to see if I can at least hit the 10,000 ceiling, and it's most definitely possible. I just wanted to kind of re-evaluate my decision in my mind, as well as I didn't want to possibly lose to a Ghost Ogre on one of the Megalos, if that had been an option. So I definitely wanted to just make sure that it was at least 10,000 if one of the Megalos got stopped, because I was going to go with a 3 Megalo game plan. And I'm still contemplating what I want to do as for an overall game plan. And here I overlay, and I was about to go into a big eye, take his Dinossaur, and then I thought about Abyss-Gaios, but then Abyss-Gaios prevents all level 5 or higher from attacking when it has a material, so I was like, nah, definitely not the game plan. So essentially, I just finally, basically I was just getting really greedy. I was trying to structure a play where I could summon 2 more Megalos, have them both have 2 attacks, and then also drop a Mooling Glacier, which was definitely possible. It would involve me making an Xyz that was definitely not optimal. It would have been Draco Sack, make its tokens, pop one of the tokens to pop the other token to make the room back, just to put one Megalo in grave, so that Megalo could be brought back off of the gun that would be sent out of my hands, and then use the Dragoons off this instant fusion that you're currently seeing to get Mooling Glaze. There were a couple different factors like that were coming into play in my mind, but ultimately were just not worth. But so anyway, I just decided to not overlay at all, and I use the instant fusion into Dweller, getting a Dragoon search, and this Dragoon search is going to get the 3rd Megalo out of the deck, the last and lonely Megalo, because if I was doing the rank 7 plan like I originally had shown interest in doing in the game, I would have been able to have searched Mooling Glace here, and then one of the 2 7s that's on the board, the Megalo or the Teus, would have been in the graveyard, and that would have been 5. So I kind of hover over the lead for a bit. I'm like, do I want to? But then I just ultimately realized that Megalo is just the better option, because I do have enough on field to justify attributing 3 different monsters. I hover over the Mooling Glace again, because I'm like, Well, let's see. I could tribute Megalo. I could tribute lead off Megalo, or not lead, Teus off Megalo, and that would give me 5. And I could just summon the Mooling Glace, but that's not good for damage. And then I go back to the lead because I'm like, I kind of want to summon this off Gund, all this nonsense. But I mean, I still could have actually done the play where I got Mooling Glace and tributed the Teus in this situation, and then summon the Mooling Glace, but then I would have definitely not had room to summon the Teus back off of the Gund, off the Megalo. So I basically just have to clear room here, and that's ultimately the decision that I came to, because I realized that all the things I wanted to do, I was not going to have room for them. But I used that Megalo, tributing the Teus to get its second attack, thus creating the 2 spaces that I need. Correct the fact that the instant fusion is not in the graveyard there. And then I reveal the Megalo, and the reason I'm playing really slow is that my internet is actually really kind of laggy right now. As you can see, the cards are kind of jumping around. That's actually not an issue in the other videos I've recorded, because I adjusted the DN quality setting down. For some reason I had it on high, and it had no business being there, so I put it down to medium, and it literally looks the exact same, but it runs 10 times smoother. So there's that. But anyway, so I activate the Megalo effect in my hand, discarding one of the Megalos in the Gund, and so the Gund triggers and gets the other Megalo back. So at this point I have 3 Megalos on the field. One Megalo tributes the Neptibus, which Neptibus gets the Dragoons back, and then the third Megalo tributes the Dragoons, and the Dragoons then gets a Search. And at this point it's way too far gone for me to possibly have a Mooling Glace play. It would have been really cool if there was a way that I could have manipulated my graveyard to have a Mooling Glace play at this point, and like have 3 Megalos that all have 2 attacks, a Dweller boosting everything, and a Mooling Glace. Like, that would have been absolutely insane. But regardless, no harm, no foul, everything's good. So I equip the Mizuchi onto one of the Megalos. Every single one of them has 2 attacks, so it doesn't matter which one it's on. I just put a little counter on it just so that, you know, it's very, very distinguishable. But so I have to attack over the Dinoster with one of the 3700 attack Megalo attacks, because nothing else can get over it. All the other Megalos are at 29. So one Megalo that has 2900 attack can attack into that Rex. And so thus I have 3 more attacks with 2900 Megalos that can attack directly, the 2200 Dweller, and then one 3700 attack Megalo attack that can still hit. And that gives us a grand total of 14,600 damage after hitting through his monsters. And so a nice smooth OTK after giving him about 7 cards off Maxi. That seems to be the constant. But anyway, that is all for this game. Again, let me know what you guys think about this type of video format in the comments down below. It's very convenient on me, and it's also just the only way that I can really get matches done, because people wanted to see matches, but I can't really do those live because they get really long. At least in this format, I can commentate afterwards, keep everything on point, make extra points, do stuff like that, but I can also possibly speed up the video if the videos start getting really crazy long, stuff like that. But otherwise, again, just let me know what you guys think. But as always, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the nonsense you usually do. Check out the links in the description to my Facebook pages, my Twitch pages, and all that if you want to connect with me, chat with me, see live streams, stuff like that. Definitely just look at those. Phone, stop that. No. But basically, that's all for this video. Just keep doing the things that you always do to support and like and share the videos around, all that nonsense. But other than that, as always, guys, take care.